Gunjan ma'am, will you please share the screen first? Screen. Yes. Ma'am, slideshow.
Yeah, just. Is my screen is visible?
Yes, yes, ma'am. It is visible. Am I audible, everyone?
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Yes. Yes. So, good evening to one and all present here. I welcome you all to the 84cc Friday presentation of the year 2023. Before we start the session, request you all to close your eyes and take a mindful breath. Thank you, teachers. So now what? So now the first thing that I want everyone to do is type the first word that comes to your mind when you hear national curriculum. You can use a chat box. I'll be awaiting the responses here. So you all can just type in what you mean by the national curriculum. Integration, yes. Ekta ma'am, good. The first one I got the answer as integration, yes. I'm waiting for some more answers. Teachers, you can just type any word that comes to your mind when you say the curriculum. Okay, framework, revised education policy. Thank you, sir. Yes, new policy, correct. Education policy, yes, yes. Thank you, teachers, for all this quick responses. So, as we move further, I will sum it up as the National Curricular Framework or NCF 2023. Gunjan ma'am, next slide now. Gunjan ma'am. Uh, uh, So I'll just wait for the Gunjan ma'am to respond. So in the meantime, I'm just going to tell you to sum it up with what it is. So National Curriculum Framework, or what we are going to see today, 2023, it's a comprehensive and a crucial document which lays down the foundational principles, objectives, guidelines for the educational landscapes in India. This framework describes the educational aims, curriculum domains, and the development strategies across the various levels. Within us, it confines intricately addressing the learning standards, the pedagogical methods, and the content enrichment, evaluation, and the mechanism. I'll just see if Gunjan ma'am is able to present the screen. Just a minute. Huh? All right, the Gunjan ma'am is going to join back again because she just lost the connection. So she's going to join within 1 minute again. So in the meantime, so I'll just go through. So anyone who wants to say anything about the national curriculum framework, you can say. I mean, you can unmute yourself and you can just say it if you know anything else.
Okay, I'll take this time to just brief as we are reading this book in our Bookflix, and it's a wonderful book, NCF, National Curriculum Framework. And we could see there are stages mentioned by the author, the foundational, the middle, and preparatory stage, where in every stage the author has beautifully described the role of a educator, also the learners, like what are the methods we can incorporate for the learners. Also, we could see that there are many new revised methods and activities are mentioned beautifully. And one more surprising thing was it's not only the role of an educator, but at the same time, Nagrani ma'am, you can answer Ashini ma'am. So at the same time, even it's the responsibility of learners. That's very beautifully explained that how we teacher can prepare our learners to advance them for the learning. So that's very surprising thing. In addition to it, if Sonal ma'am can also add anything to it.
Okay, so now here comes the fifth, I mean, the brief introduction of NCF. So, NCF, how it was started. So, pre draft of NCF's SE was placed for the public on 6th April 2023. Dr. K. Kasturangan was a chairman of it. NCE for school education was released on 23rd August 2023. Even that seems to be a quite catchy number. So, NCF FS foundational stage was released in 2022 on the 10th October, and the both the books were integrated together, and they were released on NCF foundational stage and the school education both on 23rd August 2023. So as we move further, I'll just want Ashwini ma'am be on this slide only. So the book, if as we are the part of Bookflix as well, wherein we are reading NCF National Curriculum Framework 2023. The book is divided into five parts. The first part is called as approach. So, in approach, what happens? It talks about the aims, the curriculum goals, the school stages, logic and the design, and the time allocation, pedagogy and methods. The second one, it talks about the second, when as we see. So, the second one talks about the cross theming, cross-cutting themes. So in the under the cross-cutting themes, we have rootedness in India, Indian knowledge system, values and dispositions, learning about and caring about the environment, guidance and counseling, and education technology. The third part C in that particular book, it is segregated in that particular way. So third part talks about all the subjects, and then comes the fourth, that is the school culture and the process. The school culture and the process, how we are going to lay down this new, see how we have to carry out the work. So that is what is the fourth, that the part D. And the fifth one is my favorite one, that is creating a supporting system. And here it talks about capacity building for implementation, ensuring an appropriate environment for learning, enabling and empowering the teachers, and then community and the family engagement. I want to narrate a small incident here. As in, when I joined as a new joinee for all of us, when we come to the school, we are very new all to all the terminologies. So as my situation lie was like the same song. If you remember the song, "Me paresha, 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 paresha." If you remember that song, that was just going on my head. Every day I used to come. One day, Gunjan ma'am, I mean my being head, she used to tell me, one day we're going to learn about Ellie, the second day it's a home connect, and the third day something else, no matter. And I was wondering from where all these things have come. I mean, these were things new for me. I've been working in other schools, but in this school, this was the first time when I was seeing the home connect and the involvement of so much of parents. But however, as I joined Bookflix, as I was reading, and also our visionaries and the leaders of the school knew very well how to use them together. The new curriculum, plus that's how the seamless transition of moving from the traditional to the new one was very easy for me. So now I can just say, okay, now the the secret for all these new policies is NCF 2023. So now we're going to play the first video. So the entire presentation is divided into four videos. We're going to play four videos. The first video is going to talk about the curricular goals, aims of education, competencies, and also the learning outcome. So what I want you all to pay attention here is there are four stages. That is the foundational stage, then the preparatory stage, then the middle stage, and the last one is the secondary stage. So there are four stages. As we have the four stages, we are going to aim about educational aims, curricular goals, and competences after every stage. That is after 5 years, after 3 years, after 3 years, and the 4 years. But the learning outcomes have to be achieved every year. So, ma'am, you can play the first video. So it's a video, it's about 8 minutes. You can just see the video, and it's completely self-explanatory. Devika Nagde is the name of the person, and she's going to explain us completely what happens at the foundational stage.
स्टेज कॉन्सेप्ट्स के मायने मतलब कंटेंट क्या है या सब्जेक्ट्स क्या हैं या डोमेन्स what are the domains that they're talking about in the NCF for foundational stage. As we know that the age range for NCF-FS, which is known as short, is 3 to 8. And this is in the new stages which have been given even in NEP 2020, which is 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. उसका पहला ठप्पा, the first block of the 5 years, is the foundational stage. So what do we know about that? First of all, there is a larger aims of education, both in NCF, FS, and then the draft which has come in April for the rest of the school. There are large aims of education, and then बहुत ही खूबसूरती से from these aims they are actually drawing out the curricular goals. So from the large aims we have the curricular goals. And then from the curricular goals, we are actually coming to the competencies. And again, for each curricular goal, there are 2, sometimes 3, sometimes 4 competencies. इस तरह से flow बनाया गया है NCF में. And from the competencies, it gently flows into the learning outcome. इतनी खूबसूरती से किसी ने भी पहले काम नहीं किया. So from larger aims of education, to curricular goals, to competencies, and to learning outcomes. Now, as teachers, we need to be worried and really concerned or noting what are these learning outcomes that we have been talking about across the school. Abhi foundational stage की बात हो रही है, but across the school. Because this is what will reflect in our lesson plans ultimately, and this is what we need to get done. So just to clear confusion, because we've been talking to people and we find that there is some confusion about the calendar, कि कब क्या करना है. And therefore, the aims of education and the curricular goals and the competencies, ये जो है, all these 3 need to be achieved at the end of every stage. ध्यान दीजिएगा, at the end of every stage, that means 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, उसके end में ये सब हमको achieve करना है. So just to give you an example here, there's 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. Currently, this episode is talking about the foundational stage, ages 3 to 8. So we need to achieve these which are articulated in the NCF at the end of the stage. However, the learning outcomes need to be achieved at the end of each year. This is the major difference, and which we all teachers need to really take note of. For example, at the foundational stage, child enters at age 3, so at the end of age 4, end of age 5, end of age 6, age 7, and age 8, we have specific learning outcomes to be achieved. And these have been very, very clearly articulated in the NCF. I'm going to take you through some of them, of course, to give you an example of what they really mean. Shikshangan always keeps the teacher in the center, and we have a very, very elegant framework, which is what should you teach, how do you know, once you know what to teach, how should you teach, which is the pedagogy, and once you've done with your teaching, how do you know whether all your students are getting it, and that's formative assessment, which is why it is in a cycle. Why have I done this? I've done this because we are focusing in this episode only on the what. कि भाई content क्या है, syllabus क्या है. In the next episode, we will talk about how, that's the pedagogy, as well as whether, that is the assessment. तो ये ECCE, Early Childhood Education के बारे में अभी बात हो रही है. So actually, it's divided into 5 domains like this. The NCF for the foundational stage: physical and motor development, socio-emotional and ethical development, cultural and aesthetic development, language and literacy development, and cognitive development. ये इन्होंने 5 domains कर रखे हैं. हम इसको subjects भी समझ सकते हैं, disciplines भी समझ सकते हैं, but these are the 5 areas the NCF for foundational stage is looking at. Now, what happens next is in each of these domains, although I'm taking the arrows only at the cognitive domain, we have curricular goals, we have competencies, and we have learning outcomes. In each of these 5 domains, my friends. And just to repeat this, the curricular goals have to be achieved at the end of the stage. Similarly, the competencies have to be achieved at the end of every stage, whereas the learning outcomes have to be achieved at the end of each year. Having set the context now, we can proceed to see some examples of what do they mean by goals, competencies, and learning outcomes. But before that, both NCF for foundational stage as well as the NCF for the rest of the school are absolutely rooted in Indianness. पंचकोशा का खास यहाँ पे उल्लेख किया गया है because they find that it's a map to the different domains of the development as illustrated in the previous slide. So you will find in the NCF the panchakoshas like this: Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, and Anandamaya Kosha. We still have to get some clarification on how the map is going to be, but I'm just putting down all the 5 domains here again, and we can see that it's mapping quite beautifully. So this is the Indian context that they bring in NCF for the foundational stage. Let's take all the 5 domains and illustrate it with one example from the document. So now here is something interesting. For the cognitive domain, उन्होंने 2 चीजें रखी हैं: science and environment and mathematics. They are not taking literature here, language they've kept separate. Okay. So what are they saying therefore in this? Curricular goal: children make sense of the world around them through observation and logical thinking. मैंने environment का example लिया हुआ है. Okay. So that has a competency which is observes and understands different categories of objects and the relationships between them. Both these things to be achieved at the end of the 5 years that we have talked about in foundational stage. Learning outcome to be achieved at the end of the year, ये जहाँ पे भी आता है, this probably comes at age 4 or 5. Makes connections between objects and the users. यानी कि बच्चा जानता है spoon is for eating, a bucket is for a bath, mechanic is in a garage, a doctor is in the hospital, and so on. World around them. That's one example of one domain. Let's take mathematics. Again, there is a curricular goal, and there are many curricular goals. I am taking just one for illustrating and making it. My attempt has been to make it simple, and I hope you find it interesting. Really, do subscribe to our channel, by the way, Shikshangan Education Initiatives, because we are going to bring you many episodes of NCF, and there are many other episodes on NEP as well. Okay. So the curricular goal for math, I have taken shapes. So we said children develop mathematical understanding and abilities to recognize the world through quantities, shapes, and measures. Now again, curricular goals, there are many. I have taken one just to illustrate. Now, for this curricular goal, the competency is identifies and extends simple patterns. Now these 2 to be achieved at the end of the stage, and the learning outcome, this one, to be achieved at the end of this particular year. ये मेरे ख्याल से age 6 में आता है. So describes the rule of the pattern and creates new patterns using branches, twigs, जो भी मिल जाए. The child is now able to create patterns. This is to be achieved. Therefore, this has to go in our lesson plans. Let's take socio-emotional and ethical development. I have taken the curricular goal of children develop emotional intelligence. Now, ये तो बहुत ही large goal हो गया ना. How can you do it? इसके लिए हमें समझ में आना चाहिए. We should know what is the competency and what exactly do I need to do in my class. What is the learning outcome that I need to specify in my teaching plan? The ability to understand and manage their own emotions and so on. What is the competency mentioned here? Starts recognizing self. I found this very beautiful, at the age of 6 or so, 7, starts recognizing the self as an individual belonging to a family or a community. हम अपना अस्तित्व जानने लगते हैं by this time. And the learning outcome that I want to put into my teaching plan is demonstrates awareness of self. बच्चा कहने लगता है मेरा खिलौना, मेरा घर, my mother, my father, my dress, Kabir is my friend, and I am Kabir's friend, and so on. This idea of self comes up, and this is to be achieved at the end of that year. Let's look at language and literacy. Remember, we have 5 domains to take care of, right? We are the 4th one. Curricular goal, children develop fluency in reading and writing language 1. यहाँ जरा सा pause करके L1 क्या है ये बता दें. So in the NCF document, they say L1 is the language, the home language, the language in which education is happening. So preferable तो ये है कि जो भी मातृभाषा है उसमें हो. But now that's not always possible. So for the English medium schools, L1 will be English. Okay, so that's what they mean here. Competency. Understand the basic structure format of a book. Now हम किताब पे आ गए. Okay, ideas of words in print, direction in which they are printed, and recognizing basic punctuation marks. Again, remember these two at the end of that stage. But at the end of this year, it's a beautiful learning outcome. Follows the words from right to left and from top to bottom on that page. ये तो हम करवा सकते हैं. So this is the learning outcome that I need to get done in my class. But look at the beautiful flow. It's a
So thank you very much, ma'am. So now here, if you see that in this particular video, they spoke about all the 5 domains and she's giving the example for each and every domain. So now when I see for the language, so how it is beautifully designed. The curricular goal is talking about how they're going to read, the fluency. But in the second one, they're talking about the format of the book and the structure, how they need to hold. Even when it's a learning outcome for the foundational stages, the students even need to know that they have to read from left to right, they have to read from top to bottom, they should be able to identify the books, what kind of the different books that are available. So ma'am, we can just stop it here. So I hope that everybody has gone through the video, and we'll move to the next slide now. Ashwini ma'am, next slide.
concepts के मायने
Next one,
मतलब
next one.
content क्या है?
After this. So it's a small puzzle for all of you. Gunjan ma'am? Yes. So Gunjan ma'am has already pasted the puzzle here. So you all can just open. If you've already there in this website, you can see. So we have just segregated some things. You can just try to solve the puzzle and let's see who does it first. So we'll wait for just 2 minutes. Okay, so if you see, we have just waited for 1 minute. We'll just wait for 1 more minute and see how many of you have got the correct one. Come on, teachers, it's very easy. If you've seen all the stages, if you've seen across all the stages, what are they called in our school? Yes, ma'am.
Respected teachers, I would request you, if you have get the right answer from the puzzle, you can use a chat box to share those all 4 and 5 nomenclature which you have received after this solving puzzle. Feel free to use the chat box, please. So Nagrani ma'am will be having the responses from the chat box,
No problem, ma'am. Yes, we'll wait.
based on which you will take further.
Yes, yes, yes. Anybody who's got the now, ma'am, the time is up. Oh, yes, Swati ma'am. Swati ma'am, very good. Very good. Shariyu ma'am, very good. Very nice. You see, the teachers are already very smart. Huh? I must say that. Ashwini ma'am, the next one. It was so simple. Swati ma'am, keep it up. Even Poonam ma'am, Swati ma'am. Yes. So here comes the 4 stages. The first stage, the foundational stage, is called as Anandam. The second stage, which is called as preparatory, that is Jigyasa. The third one is Chetna, middle. And the last one is a Samarpan, where they have the liberty to choose what they want to do as they move further. So now the next video is going to talk about, again, the foundational stage. We're going to see the techniques of how the playway method has been used. Ashwini ma'am, please play the next video.
see what does the NCF say about the how. That means, how should I teach? The first thing that they're mentioning over there is very popular and also very apt for this age of 3 to 8 years is teach them through play. Learning by doing, activity-based doing, joyful learning. We know all of these things earlier. In that sense, it's not new, but yet there are some beautiful nuggets there in the NCF. First thing they say is, when, even if it is play, let there be conversations in L1. That's the language of the instruction. Inter-conversations also, they give a beautiful flow. Free conversations, structured conversations, and they give clear indications to the teachers about how exactly she must go about that. Okay. The second thing that they talk about is, under this learning through play, is storytelling. Again, it's not new for the ECCE teachers because we know about conversation and stories and toys and music. However, this document articulates it in a beautiful, seamless kind of a flow. Now again, stories, they see, we had said socio-emotional domains. So to be told with feeling, to gestures, animated expressions, and basically become magical in the class, so that you engage the children in whatever you're doing. There's a huge discussion going on in education circles about toy-based learning. I want to say here, by the way, do subscribe to the Shikshangan Education Initiative channel. We bring you the best content in the simplest and easiest way that teachers can understand and directly take it into practice in your class. So I was in toy-based learning. Now, this is the pedagogy. There's a lot of confusion. People ask us about how do I do toy-based assessment? ऐसा कुछ भी उसमें mention नहीं है. Toy-based learning. That means using blocks, puzzles, dolls, balls, pretend toys, जैसे घर घर खेलना, रसोई रसोई खेलना, टीचर टीचर खेलना, डॉक्टर डॉक्टर खेलना, all of that which children enjoy and imitate and play at that age. They continue to say that when we are talking about learning through play, can we also look at the songs and the rhymes? Once again, in the ECCE curriculum, we are not unfamiliar with teaching with songs and rhymes. So they give a lot of actions, gestures, to jump, to imitate. So basically, model something that you want students to learn, and you will see them following you through very, very easily. There's a beautiful section on music and movement because there is a lot of emphasis on rootedness in Indian values, traditions and culture. So Natya Shastra se bhi bahut kuch liya gaya hai. And they talk about, can we get them to also play Indian instruments like the lejhim, the manjeera, the chiplya, the zans, all of these instruments, the dhol, jo Hindustan mein sadiyon se mashhoor hai, and therefore singing, clapping, dancing, instruments, etc. for teaching them. In art and craft, we have the usual paper folding, pasting, molding paper, and so on. So that was about one of the sections of pedagogy, which is about learning through play. There's another one on language learning, and then yet another one on mathematics learning. Now for language, what they say is the medium of instruction should be L1. We've talked about this even in episode 1. What is the meaning of L1, the medium of instruction? हो सके तो vernacular ही होना चाहिए बच्चे की mother tongue. But if that is not possible, then well, English or Hindi or Bangla, whichever medium your school seems to be running in. So medium of instruction, and they're saying what to do with L1 and when to do with L2, and basically right from the NEP 2020, ये बात बार-बार दोहराई जा रही है to immerse children in multiple languages because we have such a rich and varied cultural heritage of beautiful languages in India. But more than that, I feel that physiologically जो हमारे neurons fire करते हैं, the more languages we know, the more they fire. And therefore, the better we learn and the better we are in terms of information and interaction with the world. Reading skills के बारे में बात की है through picture books. Look at the gradation. See how beautiful it is. First through picture books, then through story books, then the read aloud books, then the guided reading, then independent reading, then interactivity, poetry, stories, literature, drama. So har taraf we will find a very seamless flow of progression in this NCF for foundational stage. Also the NCF draft which has come out for the rest of the classes. For writing skills, through drawing, labeling, spelling, workbooks, yahan pe bhi you will see that there is a gradual flow from drawing to complete sentences. एक वहाँ पे सफर है, journey है about writing. It's not as if the children will do it immediately at the point of entry to the school. I particularly liked this 4-block approach that they have for literacy instruction. So what they're saying actually is that learning of the language must be oral language, then the word recognition, then the reading, and then the writing. So it's sort of mapped to our own understanding of LSRW, listening, speaking, reading, writing, in this order. तो oral language में भी देखिए gradation है. First the picture conversation, then sharing experiences, then sharing storytelling, and then role play. And then you move to word recognition after you speak a lot. So in the word recognition, again there is a gradual progression. First phonological awareness, then the letter recognition, then sound symbol connection, then letter and word. And the third block is of course about reading. Here also first the read aloud, then the shared reading, then the guided reading and independent reading. In writing, which should be last, model writing first, shared writing next, guided writing and independent writing. So these are the 4 blocks of language and literacy learning. We'll remember that language and literacy is a separate domain. उन्होंने उसको cognitive domain में नहीं डाला. Cognitive domain में they have put science or environmental awareness and mathematics. Language and literacy को separate रखा हुआ है. इतना ध्यान, इतना महत्व दिया हुआ है. So it's very, very important to focus on these 4 blocks of language development. Similarly, there are 4 blocks of mathematics also. And they're saying that they
Ashwini
must
ma'am,
become
now
mathematics
we can just
proficiency.
see how it is.
Children must
Ashwini
have
ma'am, you can stop
these
now.
4 things.
Yes. Yes. So as you've seen how it is taken care in the English. So they have started with the very basic things and how the 4 blocks of teaching is moving further. So the same way now, I invite Bharti ma'am, as she's a part of the Bookflix team, to tell us how the learning happens in the foundational stage through the playway method. Bharti ma'am, over to you. Ma'am, you can start.
Thank you, Nagrari ma'am, and Jai Hind everyone. Let us reflect on how can we implement the lessons from this video in a classroom. Just now we saw the 4 attributes at DPS we are about to delve, that are Anandam, Chaitanya, Jigyasa and Samarpan. Give me a thumbs up if you all agree with me. So the focus of this video is on cultivating Anandam, that is joy in our foundational stage. The children which are of age 3 to 8 years. And we know ये जो हमारे foundational stage के बच्चे हैं, they are like sponge, absorbing everything whatever the teacher will give to them. That's why the video focuses on giving L1, that is their mother tongue, if possible. It's not compulsory. Otherwise, we can even speak in our English language. So how to incorporate this? We can do simple acts like storytelling, but storytelling should be with some gestures, feelings or animation, as like the teacher is literally speaking to them. Also some interactive play, acts, arts and funny things so that children can incorporate this learning. The video also talks about maths. How can we make the maths a positive, fearless attitude? So this speaks about 2 keywords I'm going to give you. The first one is CRA. C, concrete, R, abstract, and A, C, concrete, A, abstract, R, representation. CAR. Now, this CAR makes the maths very, very live and joyful. The teacher uses some manipulatives, then she goes on to abstract, and finally with the drawings, she make a beautiful representation. So the video speaks about the CAR to make the maths joyful, and it's a beautiful journey, gradual flow of drawings to the representation. And another powerful takeaway from this video is GRR, that is gradually release of responsibilities. I'm very fortunate and happy at DPS because we have like peer teaching, 2 to 4, 3 to 1. Now, how do we incorporate this? I do, we all do. Now you do alone. I teach a children, I make some leaders. Now leaders will go 2 to 4, like, right? And then they prepare one child and the child do alone. Most of us are mothers. हम क्या करते हैं? हमारे बच्चे को हाथ पकड़ के, फिंगर पकड़ के, and we help them to walk. We help them to learn how to walk. Same is GRR, gradually release of responsibility. The teacher is releasing the responsibility to the learner so that the learner is independently making other a self-learner. In conclusion, let's endeavor to incorporate these joyful practices into their daily lives by interacting with these young minds. And together we can create an environment of Anandam, the joy of learning, which will flourish in our foundational stage children. Thank you. Over to you, Nagrani ma'am.
Thank you very much, Bharti ma'am, for that insightful thoughts for us. So, Ashwini ma'am, now we'll go through the third video. And the third video is going to talk about the
See,
ancient
what does the
rootedness.
NCF
So, ma'am,
say
after
about
this, the third video. So, we have done this. So, third video, what is it? I'll just give you a heads on to what you have to just see here. So, what happens is that in this, ma'am, the next video after this, Ashwini ma'am. Yes. So it talks about connections with ancient Indian wisdom. Our ancient Indian culture is so rich with all the methodologies, the philosophers, and somewhere down the line, as with the pass of time, we are forgetting to mention them in our classrooms. So NCF has made sure that we come back to our roots. So this is again coming back to our roots, one of the tagline of the DPS. So one coming back to our roots. And in this particular video, she's going to talk about either it is from Annamaya. She's going to talk about the Panchakosh. Now, what is this Panchakosh? You can see it in the video very clearly, but I just wanted to explain. So, anybody who knows what is Annamaya Kosh, then the Pranamaya Kosh, Manomaya Kosh, if anybody knows it, you can just type it in the chat box. Or even if you want to unmute yourself and you can just, tell us what is this Panchakosh. Annamaya is food. It's yes, correct. Abira ma'am, very, very nice. Thank you very much, ma'am. So Annamaya Kosh is food news. It talks about the physical needs. Yes. Pranamaya is yes, correct. The life needs. So it's talking about whether the child is able to understand and differentiate between the right and wrong. That is the Pranamaya. Manomaya is a anyone else who wants to try? So as we move further, so the Manomaya Kosh is talking about the mental health, and then comes the Vignanamaya. So Vignan means the knowledge, and the last one is Anandamaya Kosh. That means the bliss of the body. It's a self-control, correct? It's emotional, it's self-control. So all these panchakoshas are related to the five domains of what we are going to learn. That's the reason they've included from the ancient. Why it is included? Because that's what we're going to do. We're going to make sure all these panchakoshas are going to be activated through our learning. That's the main thing that we're looking at. Ashwini ma'am, now you can play the video and you all can just see how beautifully she has explained to us.
of our country. We've talked about the Panchakosha Vikas in the earlier two episodes. However, here I'm connecting it with the five domains of education. Annamaya Kosha, which is physical health, good nutrition.
Ma'am, you can move it a bit further because we have already discussed it, no? So you can just take it further.
Pranamaya Kosha. That means a mental Vijnanamaya Kosha. And
Little more, yes.
Very well researched
and little more, yes. Yeah, I guess.
हमें सीखना ही है, वहां से रिसर्च तो आ ही ना हो, वो बात अलग है. The beautiful
yes. From here you can play. This is something very important that she's going to explain us here.
इसी तरह से NCF में आ रहा है. So when I looked at it a little bit more, what it actually means is जिसको हम पंचक्की कहते थे बचपन में, जो आज भी बहुत से खेतों में दिखती है. So this is the Yantra Ruda that they talk about. But beautiful thing that is mentioned is that the human tradition of man dependencies on nature, उसको waves of the same river कहा हुआ है, which is that there is a beautiful interchange between the environment and the human existence, which means that the constant effort of humans must be to preserve the environment, and जब आप nature की क्या संरक्षण करते हैं, तो nature भी आपका संरक्षण करेगा ही. ये एक cyclic process वहाँ पे mentioned है. This actually maps very, very beautiful to this idea of sustainable development that we talk about. इसको आगे ले जाता है NCF इन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से जोड़ देता है and therefore हमारा संविधान जो है even in that we have written there, it is written that it is one of our fundamental duties to preserve, to improve the natural environment, to preserve our forests, lakes, rivers, and the wildlife, and so on. So this is also mentioned there. What is said in our constitution, connecting it to sustainable living and taking care of our environment. Let us move forward, and you will find that in the preparatory, middle, and secondary stages, they keep connecting our ancient knowledge even to mathematics. And who does not know about our contribution of our great luminaries, mathematicians, to the world of maths in India? Abhi, the confusion kuch nahi hai. I think that the only thing that the NCF is really trying to point out is ki isko bhuliye mat. Point it out to the children that how were the concepts actually evolved over different civilizations in the world as well as in India. हमने भी बहुत कुछ यहाँ पे किया है. That is what they want us to point out. So they start from Baudhayana, 800 BC, and उनके बारे में सर्व सूत्र की बात की है. Very quickly we will go through this slide because it does mention the Pythagoras theorem there. That Panini in the 6th century and उनका actually काम language पे है. But today his work is being used in the programming of computer languages. आर्यभट्ट इनके बारे में बहुत सुनते हैं हम, but we only know अरे zero दिया मेरे भारत ने. But there are a lot of other things that he actually did, including the Earth's rotation, revolution, zero, trigonometry, and so on. He also mentioned Bhaskara 2, not Bhaskara 1, वो confusion नहीं होना चाहिए. And मैंने भी इसके बारे में जब पढ़ा, so I was मैं तो मंत्रमुग्ध रह गई.
Yes. Yes, ma'am, correct. Sonali Sinha, ma'am, whatever you said is absolutely right. And this way, they want us to remember all these philosophers and use them in the classroom. So, this is what this entire video is talking about. If you see in the national curriculum frame, that particular book, in the part B, it is talking about the rootedness, the Indian rootedness here. Ma'am, we can stop this video now. Now we'll come to the fourth video, and that's the Ashwini ma'am, you can go to the next slide now.
Of our country. We've talked about.
Yes. So now I want you all to just give me one word answer here. You can type in if you want to go back to your classes and you want to talk about any one philosopher, whom do you want to talk about? From all these four mentions or anyone, any ancient philosopher, you can write it in the chat box. Please use the chat box, teachers. Kautilya and Swami Vivekananda, yes. Oh, yes, yes, yes. So we'll move to the next session of this segment, that is the last video, which will talk about how the curriculum goals, Kauralya, yes, Pooja Singh ma'am, thank you very much. So how the curricular goals are mapped with the competencies and how we are going to achieve the learning outcomes out of it. Ashwini ma'am, the next video, please. Throughout all the ages, throughout all the stages, either it is starting from preparatory to middle to secondary stages. So we're going to see all the three stages, how the competencies are mapped.
Take one example from the world around us at the preparatory stage. As we know from the earlier episodes, you do watch all the episodes we've done earlier because we show the straight connection between the beautiful seamless flow. Curricular goals होते हैं, उसके बाद competencies होते हैं, हर गोल के कुछ competencies हैं, and हर competency के ऊपर आधारित कुछ learning outcomes भी दिए गए हैं. तो बहुत आसान हो गया है because now the teacher needs to look only at the learning outcome which she needs to achieve, as we remember, at the end of each year. Curricular goal, इसमें देखें हम, the topic we've taken from the preparatory stage is the world around us, like environmental science. Curricular goal है that the student will develop sensitivity towards natural and social environment. Look at the competency. The student is able to describe natural resources in their immediate environment. बच्चे की निजी जिंदगी से करीब होना चाहिए. And then, so these two to be done at the end of the preparatory stage, of course, and the learning outcome at the end of each year during the preparatory stage. So, listing of various natural resources in the locality and so on. एक बहुत ही खूबसूरती से उन्होंने एक लेसन प्लान ही कह लेंगे हम इसको, एक वर्ल्ड अराउंड अस का उन्होंने एक शेल्टर्स के ऊपर बहुत अच्छा एक्सप्लेनेशन दे रखा है कि यदि पीछे की स्लाइड में जो हमने बात की लर्निंग आउटकम क्या होना चाहिए उसके लिए क्या क्या होगा क्लास में. The student will be able to recognize types of shelters and contrast the urban and rural shelters and so on. मटेरियल्स की पहचान, कौन सा कंस्ट्रक्शन में ट्रेडिशनल एंड मॉडर्न कंस्ट्रक्शन में कौन सा मटेरियल यूज होता है. They will be able to research on the safety treatment of shelters, unstable regions जहाँ earthquakes वगैरह होते हैं and so on. फिर geographic, economic, environmental factors की consideration भी होनी चाहिए. All this is mentioned in the NCF. Then the basic need for safety, भाई क्यों होना चाहिए shelter, not only for human beings but also for birds and animals. इस तरह से उसका विस्तार किया गया. This was one example of the preparatory stage. Let us look at one example, the same 8 domains at the middle stage. At the middle stage. That means 5 is foundational, then 3 वो preparatory हो गया. The next 3 which is now the middle stage. Here I have taken an example of visual arts. Again, there are curricular goals, there are competencies, and there are learning outcomes. By now, we are very, very familiar with this framework. It's a beautiful, seamless framework, जो कि NCF में बोला गया है. बहुत examples दिए गए हैं, and आप B section जरूर उसका पढ़िए. Okay? So let us take the curricular goal, which they're saying they are applying their imagination and creativity to explore alternative ways of looking at the arts. Competency connects visual imagery, symbols and metaphors, and personal experiences and emotions. And learning outcome at the end of the year explains the connections between visual elements. एक बात बताएं, आप हिंदुस्तान में किसी को भी एक कागज कलम दे दीजिए, one paper and pen, अभी भी करके देख लीजिए. If I tell you draw a scenery, what will you draw? You know that 2 mountains, 3 mountains, one sun peeping through the mountain, some birds which are flying, एक नारियल का पेड़. ये हमने अपने देश में आर्ट को भी रोड कर दिया है. We just wrote, memorized how to draw a scenery. भले ही कश्मीर में आपको नारियल का पेड़ ना दिखे. Okay, so this is not what the NCF is saying. Local, immediate, personal experiences and environment. Very beautifully, they have talked about how do you create this refinement towards arts. वारली का उल्लेख डॉक्यूमेंट्स में, आर्ट एजुकेशन के डॉक्यूमेंट्स में बार बार आता है. This is a tribal art of Maharashtra, my state, where they use symbols, geographical location with geometrical symbols to tell an entire story. So the tribal art connections with social science as well as with mathematics, ये तो हो गया, interdisciplinary तो हो ही गया. Let us look at one more example from the final and the secondary stage. Again, as you know, there are 8 domains that we have to talk about for any stage here. 8 to 18. All of them with examples have been illustrated in the NCF document part B. उसको देखिए, and annexures में भी है. यहाँ I have deliberately taken interdisciplinary area because ये आप आगे की 4-5 slides में देखेंगे कि this is compulsory. There are options for other things, but this one is compulsory. Here, I've taken what they're saying about individuals and society. It's so beautifully articulated. Again, there are curricular goals, there are competencies, and there are learning outcomes. I have taken one example for this episode, and just to sort of, spur all of us and all those who are watching this to read this beautiful document. By the way, do like and subscribe to my channel. We easily bring you content and simplify it as much as we can. So in the curricular goal, they are saying that develops ethical and moral reasoning. Individuals and society की बात हो रही है. Competencies examines a wider issue or an event from multiple perspectives. यहाँ critical thinking भी आता है. Learning outcome compares implications of the issue at different time periods. मतलब कोई भी मुद्दा ले लें सोसाइटी का और उसका चारों तरफ से यदि हम जांच पड़ताल करें, that is what they have given as an example here. Secondary stage. Secondary stage 9, 10, 11, 12. 4 साल. The last plus 4 is this one. Now let us see which is the example they have given here. They have given many, but I have selected this one, which is actually how do you examine the participation of women in science? आप गौर कीजिए, आज भी women surgeons आप बाकी fields में बहुत कम है, कार्डियोलॉजी में या ब्रेन सर्जरी में there are more men than women. इनका participation क्या है और क्या फर्क है, इसके बारे में they are saying let the children discuss, analyze the different implications for the women is what they are saying. Again, evaluate how much opportunity the women get to participate and so on. Describe the effort at the level of the government, at scientific communities to bring women into the fold of science. As well as कुछ अलग अलग centuries के आप थोड़ा सा study करके देखें कि कैसे कैसे बदलाव आता गया. How did more and more women enter the world of science? What was the socio-cultural, political, economic thing that was impacting this decision? And what was the treatment of women?
Okay, thank you, Ashwini ma'am. So now if you see here how the the involvement of women is used in this particular slide, I mean in this particular example, how she's using from the curricular goals to the aims of education through the competencies and then the learning outcomes. Now I invite Sonali ma'am here to proceed it little further and how she's going to explain through a simple example in all the preparatory stage, the secondary stage, and the foundational stage, how she's going to carry out the lesson. So, ma'am, over to you.
Thank you so much,
Ashwini
Nagrani.
ma'am, next slide, please. Sonal ma'am, correct. Sonal ma'am, I'm really sorry. Huh?
Take one example from the world. Take one example from the
Next slide.
world
Next slide,
around.
ma'am. Ashwini ma'am, next slide. Yes, this is the one.
Thank you so much. And let's dive into the fascinating world of teaching picture composition at different stages of learner learning journey. Okay, so there are primarily 4 stages of learning: Anandam, Jigyasa, Chetana, and Samarpan, as we have seen. Okay, so at the Anandam and Jigyasa stage, how we can introduce picture composition to the students? We can introduce them to the basic vocabularies. We can also introduce them to storytelling, in which they are expected to write about looking at the picture. They are going to write about the picture in 2 to 3 sentences. Then we can also introduce group activity in this process, and where they will learn collaboration and learn to work as a team. Now comes the Chetana stage, where we can expand their vocabulary. We can ask them to use range of descriptive words. Then here we can also focus on the structure, like introduction, body, and conclusion of the composition. We can also introduce critical thinking, encourage them to analyze the picture and think critically. We can also ask them to discuss the emotion, action, and potential consequences that is depicted in the picture, okay, or the image that we have given. Now comes the Samarpan stage. Here we can introduce them to different
Ma'am, next
compositions of
slide, please. Ma'am, 1 minute. Next slide. Ashwini ma'am, next slide.
Ma'am, I'm dealing with the third one.
Samarpan.
Ma'am,
Huh.
yeah,
Yes. Ma'am, the next one. Chetna is also over. The next slide.
I've done this also. Yeah.
Yes.
And now here comes the Samarpan stage. Here what we can do is we can introduce students to different types of composition, like narrative, descriptive. We can also ask them to do peer review. Like we can ask them to do the give constructive feedback to each other. We can also ask them to do the editing, and we can also incorporate revision skills into them by this thing. And then we can also ask students to introduce literary devices like figure of speech to adorn their composition. For example, poetic devices, poetic devices like simile, metaphor, symbolism, and we can elevate. And by this, we can elevate the quality of their composition, and gradually, right from Anandam to the Samarpan stage, they can grow as both in terms of vocabulary, sentence structure, then the various devices that are used. That is all from my side. Over to Nagrani ma'am. Am I audible?
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Smita, what happened? Ashwini, we are able to see Ashwini ma'am's screen.
No, I was saying that Ashwani ma'am is presenting. Sonali
Yes,
ma'am was
yes.
asking actually.
Yeah. Ashwini ma'am is presenting, so we can see the screen now. Ma'am,
We
please
just
come to the
pinch Ashwani ma'am.
Ashwini ma'am. Now the next screen.
Sorry.
Yeah, quiz one. Yeah.
So here we have a small quiz for you all, which you can attempt later on. But we're just going to move further. Ma'am, next slide. Yes. So these are some of the thoughts which we have taken from NEP. So out of which they're just displaying for you. I'm going to read one of the smallest one. Education must build a character, enable the learners to be ethical, rational, and compassionate, and caring, while at the same time for prepare them for gainful and fulfilling employment. So as we move further, I request, Ashwini ma'am, next slide. Yes. So thank you everyone. We're going to post the book link here in the chat box. You can see the entire book, National Curriculum Framework 2023. And I would be very happy if I could just see some of the responses in the chat box, at least one or two take away from the sessions. And I wish each and everyone in advance a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. So thank you all of you.
Thank you so much, Nagrani ma'am. It was a really wonderful session, and I'm sorry we had good presenters, Sonal ma'am as well as Bharti ma'am joined us for this session. Really amazing, and I hope there are a lot of takeaways today. Everyone has got a brief idea about what is NCF and how it works. I hope everyone has enjoyed this session. I'm sharing a feedback form in the chat box. You can fill it. Okay. Yeah, Siddharth sir is here. Yes, sir.
I wanted to just take a moment to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and have a great time with your family. Happy holidays. And I hope I couldn't attend the full session, but I'm sure Nagrani ma'am, Sonal ma'am, and Bharti ma'am would have done justice to the NCF. And of course, Devika's videos would have been amazing. So I would encourage everybody to, go through the NCF. Ashwini is sharing the book as well. Uh, in case you're not reading the entire NCF, you must read the specific sections of your subjects at least. I think that will give you a good idea of what the NCF expects from each one of us as educators. Thank you everybody for joining in. Merry Christmas, happy holidays.
Thank you, sir. Now we have VP ma'am, Shilpa ma'am also over here. Ma'am, would you like to share anything after attending the CC Friday?
Actually, yes, Nagrani, it was very well presented. I think very comprehensive and detailed. And whatever Sonal and Bharti shared, I think with their examples, I think that was very clear. Very good presentation, I would say. The videos were really good.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, teachers. Please check the feedback form in the chat box.
Wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, teachers.
Thank you,
We are
ma'am.
meeting
Wishing you the
anyway tomorrow
same.
for a celebration.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shilpa ma'am. Thank you, teachers, for joining in, and Merry Christmas to everyone and a Happy New Year.
We have regular school.
Yes.
Our holiday will begin from 29th.